In this video, I'm going to talk about data analysis methods for design research, and then I'm going to go into a bit more about sample size. So when you're thinking about data analysis and say how you're going to analyze data, you've got to be quite specific about the kind of tests you're going to use, and then secondly, the procedure and software. So let's dive into this. Qualitative is where you're thinking about meaning for people and the kind of themes they're saying. The standard approach for this is thematic analysis. As a design student, you've probably run affinity mapping before. And this is great for simple areas, but it's not very rigorous. So thematic analysis is something that's much more in depth. I'll put some resources on how to conduct thematic analysis in the description of this video and with its posting. So that's something to do. It's good to reach out to your supervisor and ask about this, find someone in the school who's got that. And of course, I'm going to be doing a course on this very shortly, so that is coming very soon. So we will be covering how to run thematic analysis. But just bear in mind that it is like affinity mapping, but with a lot more depth, looking at between groups themes. And if you use software such as NVivo, you can really cut through the analysis and do some really wonderful data. If you haven't done thematic analysis before, it's okay to say you're going to do it and learn it in the time when you're doing data collection. There's not very much to learn. It is very achievable, but it's something that you've got to plan for. Now, quantitative analysis, I'm going to just focus on three things about scale data, categorical data, and then bar charts. So let's take our classic kind of quantitative data, scale data. This is things like the time it takes to do something, or on a scale of 1 to 100, what's your satisfaction, or how many errors did you make, that kind of data. And for this, you're typically doing between groups comparisons, which is group A versus group B, which would be like a t-test. You could do before and after analysis, but probably in design research, you're just comparing group 1 to group 2. You can do that in Excel. You can do it on websites which have online stats calculators. You can use software such as SPSS, but there's no real need for most master's students to use SPSS. SPSS is perfect for PhD, but can get a bit complicated. So just using online calculators can be completely fine. The important thing is that you have the right sample size, which we'll talk about in a second. Generally, you need large samples, around 200 people, but I've published quantitative research with as small as 60. So it really just depends on what test you're running. In my book, Sample Size for Design Research, I go into how to choose your right kind of test. So there's many ways you can do this. Now, the other kind of data you might have is categorical data, which is, did you pass it, did you fail? Or if you design a shopping app, did you make a purchase? Yes or no? These are very clear distinctions. And I'm using just yes and no, 2 categorical. You can go into 3, 4, or 5. One thing I published recently was what kind of body shape someone is. They've got 5 different kinds of body shapes, and do different methods of predicting body shape agree with each other. So the kind of test you can do is chi-square, and chi-square is saying, does the distribution of data match what you'd expect if there's no significance? So, for example, is the difference between men and women smoking? Well, obviously you've got one categorical data, which is male, female. And you've got another categorical data, which is smoke, don't smoke. So that's very clear. And you can say, well, are men significantly more smokers than women with a chi-square? The other one would be cap and measure of agreement, which is, do classification systems work the same? So if you were to have one expert categorizing something, do they have similar to a different expert? Such as, would a junior doctor diagnose cancer the same, yes, no, in the same way that a seasoned professional doctor, sorry, they're all professional doctors, maybe a doctor with 20 years experience, would they categorize cancer, no cancer at the same rate. So that's cap measure agreement. And there's more. So it's very important that you understand what kind of data you got, if it's scale data or categorical data, and then you choose the right kind of test, work with your supervisor, work with people in your school. Don't just sit there waiting, reach out to us. We are there to help you. So yeah, choose the right kind of thing and choose the right sample. Your categorical data might just need 30 or 50 people, which is much smaller than your scale data. Now you can convert Likert scales into categorical data using top-bottom, but that's something we can talk about a different day. If you're trying to look at scale and you've only got 50 people, comment or reach out to me. We can talk about converting Likert into categorical. A third kind of thing to think about is bar charts. Bar charts are great at visualizing data, but they are really a qualitative tool. So if you were to make a bar chart of the themes in an interview with each bar representing how many times people said them, that's completely fine. It's a great way to visualize the numbers in the qualitative interviews. What it doesn't do is tell you if that difference is by chance. That's what the statistics is for. Once again, you don't need to do statistics for design research. You can do qualitative. Bar charts can be part of qualitative. But just bear in mind, if you want to do statistics, you've got to do it properly. And that is quite rigorous. It's worth it. It's achievable. It's something to do. So let's talk about setting a sample as something which actually related to data analysis. So you know what data collection you're going to do. You know what method you're going to do for analysing. So you can think about how many people do you need. And this really depends on what method analysis you're doing. So if you're doing statistics, you really need to recruit a large enough sample to run your data. So my book here, Sample Size for Design Research, does go into this on how many people you need for quantitative and qualitative studies. So that's a great place to start. Existing journals can be a good way as well. If you say, well, does a comparable study use the same sample? That could be okay, but generally you want to use my book there. Because that's based on power calculations and justifying the right sample size. Now, once you know how big your sample is going to be, you might go, well, I need 200 people. I can't get 200 people. Let's go back and say, well, could I use a different kind of analysis? Rather than using ratio scale data, could I use categorical data? That makes my sample size smaller. I need 50 people. Okay, that's a better way I can do that. I'm now doing chi-squared rather than t-test. Okay, right. So you can go back and forth on that. Once you know how many people you need, you can start to think about how will we recruit them, and really describe in your methodology how you will get them. It's not I'll go and get them. It's I'll put Facebook adverts, posters, etc. But the first thing you have to think about is who they are. So go back to your research problem. Who has the research problem and what's it about? If you got a company or industries overall talking about young people not shopping on high street, then doing a design project around high street shopping, excellent. If you then went out and recruited people who are over 40, they're not really young people anymore. So their views don't generalise to the people that you have a problem with. You want to recruit young people. University students could be a good load of people to interview. So focus on the people that your question relates to. Make sure you're sampling the right people. Also think about who you're not sampling. So you might want to exclude people who don't regularly shop for clothes. You might want to exclude people who don't enjoy what you're talking about or whatever. You might have a reason not to include someone. That's important to talk about. Also think about ethics. Who do you not want to include? So someone with a severe learning disability is probably not going to be included, whereas someone with a general neurodiversity, such as dyslexia, probably is completely fine. And yeah, think about sample size. And the way you recruit people Again, look at journal papers. How have they done it? If you don't know, just go and read some. In developing research questions, you will have done extensive reading, so you should have a good idea. But general methods, putting posters up, sending out emails, using Facebook ad, putting up flyers, which is basically a poster anyway, so not sure it's on twice, or just walk up to someone in the street. If there's local market, go up to approach someone and say, "Hi, I'm a university student doing a design project. Do you have 10 minutes to chat?" Or giving out leaflets to people saying, "Please be part of this." There's a lot of ways you can go on this. You can go on, if you're looking for remote research, such as surveys, you can go on forums and say, "Hey everyone, here's my survey, please take it." Now, one thing I'm going to point on here is Facebook adverts. You can get good results. So you could say, "I want to get people who are 18 to 25 in Loughborough to see my advert." That does work. I've done it before. It's expensive. So you can get a big enough sample without paying for Facebook adverts. Just bear that in mind. Incentives, something really worth thinking about as well. Incentive is saying, if you participate, I'll give you £10 or £30 or whatever it is. I would not encourage you to give incentives. Do not give incentives because firstly, it's expensive and you probably don't have the money. Second, people start doing your research to get the money instead of to help you out. So that's something to think about. And if you want to know more about any references I've talked about in the series, here are some excellent books that I'd recommend you looking at. I hope this has helped with understanding design research for design, for making methods. And any questions, please let me know. I can't wait to answer your comments and work with you on this.